Thank you, Louie. My name is Angela. I'm from UAPI, and I work in business development and strategy. In this panel today, we'll be touching on the overall strategy of full funnel marketing, from initial growth stages to user acquisition and retargeting. So I'm joined by Josh.
Hey guys, my name is Josh. I currently run growth at a D2C startup named Furnish, and prior to that, I ran growth and product at a mobile app called Body.
And Mike.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike Reese. I'm currently the mobile manager for the North Face, America's team. And before this, I did digital marketing for Western Union.
And Imelda.
Hi, I run lifecycle programs for Stitcher, which is a pure play podcast app recently acquired by SiriusXM Pandora, but is a part of an end-to-end podcast company that also produces shows.
Thank you all for joining today. So yeah, just to get things started, everyone's goal here is to grow your user base, retain quality users. And so starting with Imelda, how do you promote your app to stand out amongst the competitors?
Yeah, I'll actually let Josh take this one. Here's why. Lifecycle is the majority of my work, so I do a lot of work around retention and M1 users, and so I feel like Josh would be better apt.
Yeah, definitely. So I think something that I try to use across anything that you do, anything from mobile marketing to D2C, is personalization, and make sure that the messages that you're getting to your consumers are really personalized for them and stand out in the feed. People see, thousands of different ads a day, so anything that's going to make them stop scrolling. So at Body, we did things like specifically create banners for people who liked certain TV shows. So if we knew you were interested in The Office, we would target you with specific The Office ads. And we've also done things like partnering with influencers and serving from their handles and whitelisting from their handles because it would really stand out in the feed and become organic. So it's really about, people seeing a ton of ads. So how can you stand out in the feed and make people notice you?
Yeah, great points. Mike, do you have anything to add to that for standing out amongst your competitors?
I mean, for us, our app is focused a lot on our loyalty program, so we really use loyalty as a entryway into our mobile app itself, and try to drive engagement with our loyal base of customers in order to grow our app base. So we take it from a loyalty approach on our side.
And within that, do you have internal methods for some more cost-effective ways of growing that user base?
We definitely leverage our own channels a lot. So we do a lot of email pushes, and we launched an SMS program recently that will be driving customers back to the app space. I think it's really great to kind of connect all of our mobile messaging channels together and make sure that we're really driving a consistent message across like SMS, email, as well as our in-app messaging as well.
Imelda, I know that, with using Stitcher, I get push notifications. So maybe you can speak to that as well.
Yeah, totally. When it comes to retaining users, we prioritize any personalized marketing and messaging around what they listen to. So whenever a user comes in, for example, and listens to Conan, now they're put in a comedy bucket, and we know that they love comedy, or they like comedy, and we serve them more comedy podcasts. If they change and they listen to a different type of podcast, we're adaptable to that. Any personalized communication we've seen drive retention numbers higher when we've run tests in the past.
Josh, any personalized messaging to speak to, or how often you're refreshing that messaging?
Yeah, so I think in-app messaging is one of the most successful channels that we've seen. I've tried things like web push and haven't really seen the success that I have in in-app. In-app, you just have more ability to personalize. And I think it really is important to be the messages need to not be forced, and they need to be helpful. Really, when retaining users, it's really you want to create value for them. And it's super easy just to delete an app. So you can't annoy your users to do that. So you want to interact with them in a super natural and intuitive way that isn't intrusive, but really creates value for them.
Have any of you found that email wraps it all up together for any of that internal cost-effective ways? Is email a main driver?
I found that email does work really well, but it really depends on what you're trying to get them to do. I know a lot of platforms now, you can say reach your customers in whatever platform that they would be most engaged on. So I know Interval, for example, has that. Braze has that ability where you just kind of let the platform choose which is the most engaged platform for them, and is when is the best time to reach them, and the platform itself will actually do that for you.
Yeah, I'll echo what Josh just said. It depends on where they are in their life cycle. For me, for example, if they're at risk of turning or they're churning, push is the way to go. Way to increase listening in the app or engage with users in the app. Email drives a lot of that traffic, a lot of the listening hours, at least for podcast listeners.
And then when you start to expand outside of those internal means, where do you guys start? Do you start with Facebook, of course? Maybe Mike, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, leverage Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. We do a lot of branded campaigns in social media, as well as paid search and programmatic display ads as well. Kind of do a full funnel approach, driving traffic back to the app from a page standpoint, and then we really capitalize on email because that's our strongest customer base right now, and we see our most loyal customers in the loyalty program within VIP are the ones that are the most active and the ones that come back and purchase more frequently. So our consistent goal is to try to enroll as many people as possible in VIP so that we can get those customers that have a high lifetime value for the brand.
Then when you defined your quality user when you all first started at your roles, was that something that you had to do on your own when you first started, or was that something that was kind of handed to you? Maybe Imelda, if you'd like to answer that.
Yeah, totally. My role was super new when I first started, so I created a lot of the framework for lifecycle and what that meant and what a quality user would look like. And so a lot of that was just working with our analysts and our data science team to understand better who our current users were and what quality, what we defined as quality users. For us, obviously, when we look at growth, UA, for example, we look at people who have listened to podcasts, so have heard of podcasts. We welcome new to podcasts too, but it's just easier to convert someone who's familiar with podcasts already. When we think of maybe Apple Podcast listeners, Stitcher is kind of an upgrade from Apple Podcast or Spotify. It's pure play. So we definitely look at those things.
Do you use social media as a big channel for you?
We do. We use social media. It's a big channel for us. We started exploring with Instagram and Twitter and then now TikTok. And Twitter, we find a niche sort of audience because we think of podcasts they can be very cerebral. So a lot of that community kind of already exists in Twitter. We went viral a few times with a few of our tweets because they just clicked with super fans or podcast listeners and also podcast creators. So we're always testing new things and keeping up with trends and just going for it. Always. We never settle on one single channel. Always testing, always exploring new things.
Yeah. Josh, for your quality users, what do you find works best on social channels?
Yeah, I think each social channel has its own value prop, or I find that it works for different places in the funnel. Facebook is really great for top of funnel, while I see Snapchat is great for re-engagement because you can get really high frequency and really get in front of your users. And we look at what is the retention by acquisition channel, and what does it cost to retain that user. If you look at something like Pinterest, it's been a real challenge to scale up that platform, and we've actually seen lower AOVs for Furnish, and we we couldn't seem to get it work at all for Vadi. So really, I look at each channel like in its own silo and how, as well as like how it plays into everything else, because it really does matter. If I'm willing to pay more for a user on Facebook because ultimately their LTV is going to be higher than someone that I might pay somewhere else because their LTV is going to be lower.
It's interesting to break it out by user behavior. I think the typical is to think that this vertical works on this platform, but even just drilling down to the user behavior as well. So I think at that point we can pivot more to retargeting. Mike, how do you balance retargeting within your UA strategy?
For us, it's about trying to retarget the customers that are lapsing or in the process of lapsing. So we spend a lot of time focusing on like the customer life cycle and evaluating how often customers purchase our products, and look at that timeline and make sure we can re-engage those customers before they would phase out if they haven't transacted in their current or their normal cadence of purchasing product from the North Face brand.
You're probably working really close with your data team.
Very close to the data team. Spend a lot of time in Google Analytics and trying to understand better where our customers are going. And it's also great having measurement partners to help you track that from an app standpoint as well.
Yeah. Josh and Imelda, are you pretty close with your data teams as well?
Yeah, I would say that I do all my own data analytics. All my teams have been really small, so wear a lot of hats. And coming from like product as well at Vadi, like I was the data team. Like our data analysts were machine learning people, not data analyst people.
Yeah.
For me, they're my besties. Without them, it's super important to have a really good relationship with your data and your product teams. I rely on them for a lot of my life cycle campaigns and my like data deep dives. So yeah, I will say that this is probably the most important relationships I have.
Yeah. And then when formatting, at what point to re-engage, was that based on that analysis? Was there certain user behaviors? Where did you find worked best in that process?
Yeah, totally. Like I'm at the handoff point. So once the user's acquired, I make sure that they're properly onboarded and like optimizing our onboarding campaigns to maximize retention rates. And when it comes to if they're identifying when they're at risk of churn and sort of being I want to say aggressive about it, but like we carefully aggressive about it because we don't want them to churn. So making sure we know when they're churning and messaging them at the right time with the right content. So risk of churn, churning, churned, like all those are important buckets for retention for my lifecycle campaigns. And then, last resort, we want to not spend money on getting them back. We want to use all our internal resources we have because it's free, email, push, whatever is available to us. And then lastly, we will spend money on retargeting.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thank you all for joining me today. I wanted to close out with some rapid questions. So I'll go in order of Josh, Mike, and Imelda. So what's the most used app on your phone?
I would say Spotify or Slack.
Stitcher.
It will be Spotify as well.
Yeah. Plug for Stitcher. What is the one thing that you need that makes your work from home doable?
My many monitors.
Noise canceling headphones for sure.
I would say the monitors as well.
Yeah, I think monitors. And then I know you all binged Louis AGS's Happy Hour talk show, but besides that, what is your favorite podcast?
Tim Ferriss for me.
How I Built It.
Mine would be Serial.
Oh, nice.
Also very good.
Yeah, I would say probably Brene Brown, Unlocking Us, which is where I got this idea from. So, yeah, well, thank you all, and everyone have a great conference out there.